let's roll call.
Hi, Camus,
Here.
Foley,
Here.
yep. Peralez, Esparza. We do not have a quorum yet.
Okay. Looks like we'll be waiting for a quorum.
Johnny, can we have presentations that don't require any action?
You would have to do it on orders of the day. You can't approve an orders of the day, moving the agenda around.
I'm not sure I understood.
Okay.
Can't we hear the verbal, the report on economic?
Is there anything in consent?
No,
Okay, so the only thing is the reports?
yes, the verbal report on the standing report that we always have.
Okay, there's nothing on consent, you can skip that because well, here you go, you have a.
There's Councilmember Diep.
Okay, good. There we go.
Hi, it's Maya.
Hi, Maya.
All right, we got Maya as well. Great, we have a quorum. All right, well, let's start with the report on economic activity. Kim, take it away.
Great. So first of all, welcome back, council members, to the CED committee, the virtual version. It's great to see everybody. I know that you know this, but for the benefit of everybody, I want to recognize and celebrate that Nancy Klein was named Director of Economic Development in July. The budget that you adopted, including budget action to take the position that I was in, which was both Deputy City Manager and Director of the Office of Economic Development, and to separate those into two positions. So Nancy is flying back from dropping her daughter off at college this afternoon, so she's not able to be with us. But in the future, Nancy will be is responsible and will be giving the verbal report, along with Elizabeth Handler. And I will still be supporting the CED committee and working with all of you. So with that, it's my pleasure to have Elizabeth Handler, who creates this, the San Jose Economy News, does a great job every month, to give this verbal report. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Kim, and committee members. It is my distinct pleasure to be back with you to have done the second monthly report during the COVID period. We were in abeyance for a while because our communications was entirely dedicated to supporting our business partners and helping deal with emergency communications issues through EOC. But we do have some mixed recovery and general interest information coming up now for our September newsletter, and I'll walk you through it. As you're perfectly well aware, the commercial linkage fee issue continues to work its way through, and we're trying to keep as updated as we can so that our business partners and readers understand at what stage the linkage fees discussions are being managed. So that was one post that we did. We also were excited to be able to share a tool that our housing catalyst, Jared Ferguson, has developed, which is an extremely detailed interactive map posing as a database that answers all your questions if you happen to be looking for a place to build housing in the city of San Jose. And there's a video tutorial that will walk people through how to work this map, as well as a survey on how people experiencing this map think it could be improved. So it's kind of a beta test of this service, but it's part of the geographical data conglomerations that we are very focused on making available to planners, developers, and the general public and business leaders throughout the city. The interesting news came out after the federal Paycheck Protection Plan funds had been announced and distributed was the impact of those funds on the city of San Jose. And this was an early report, I think in May, that it topped about $1 billion just to the city for businesses in the city. And there's details there about for instance, the top 3 business sectors that received PPP loans were restaurants, software, and law firms. 128,000 plus jobs were retained as a result of those paycheck protection loans. So it's a lot of good news that doesn't usually get told. We hear a lot about the businesses who weren't able to get them. But that effort continues through both OED and EOC to continue to find sources of funding, loans, and grants for small businesses. Another part of our big support effort is the Alfresco initiative, which is providing the usage of unconventional spaces throughout the city for business operations. And the business operations are, in some cases, the locations only support restaurants. In some cases, they support a wide range of restaurant, retail, and personal care services, and education, and fitness and exercise. But now these sites include sidewalks, public sidewalks, private parking spaces, parklets, which are parking spaces in front of businesses, public parks, plazas, city-owned parking lots, and complete street block-offs, as in San Pedro Square. So we're very busy administering all the applications and the various requirements for people to take advantage of that program, which is free, and in many cases, virtually instantaneous. Upon registration, you can go ahead and put your chairs out on your sidewalk or on the parking lot and go into business. COVID communications throughout this time have been ongoing, so we just included a couple of examples. Questions that came up that were being answered by a team in OED, including the chief of that department, Nathan Donato Weinstein, is examples of the kinds of questions that we got, especially around the social distancing protocols, which are complicated and confusing and extremely vital for controlling the spread of COVID. I work at home. I'm a behavioral health therapist. I never see a living human being. Do I still have to submit a protocol? I'm a wedding photographer, and I'm never closer than 6 feet away from my subjects out in the misty wheat fields. So if you still want to know whether or not you have to file a social profile, we suggest you read our blog post on it. Communicating with businesses during COVID, we used a lot of different channels and tactics. We were dealing with a rolling situation in a lot of cases. Many of you will remember the beginning of July, many businesses were open for an exciting 2.5 days and then had to shut down again. And trying to keep track of how the county and the state were reacting with and against each other with the various statistical issues that came up, and what the implications were for our businesses was a challenge. And especially since we've committed to do virtually timely, as timely as we can, translations into Vietnamese, Spanish, and both Chinese, traditional and simplified. So it's a big workload that the EPIO staff have been super, super helpful in getting us to achieve. So that is our newsletter for September. And instead of a list of exciting events, we're referring people to the Team San Jose Visit San Jose site that has done an awesome job of creating a compendium of all the online events, whether they're yoga classes or meditation or cooking classes, or all the exciting things that people are turning to our digital tools now in order to share, either for free or for contributions and fees throughout the city. That's our report, and I appreciate your attention. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that report. Any questions from my council colleagues? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to, I think, the the only item that we have on our agenda other than this report?
Councilmember
Excuse me,
Gavin's
Chair, we have
accept the
a
report.
hand raised for public
Oh,
comment.
do we?
Yes.
I apologize. I
Mr. Beekman?
didn't see it. Oh, it looks like Blair Beekman. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Hopefully my sound quality will be better. I have a new phone I purchased, so hopefully you can hear me better. Thank you for that item. It was really interesting to learn that you took a lot of time with Chinese interpretations as well. I imagine that you're working on many different levels of interpretations for people to understand throughout the city of your, budget policies and overall city policies. It sounds like you're taking a lot of care about this issue at this time. And so I hope it can all be easier for us to eventually, how we can talk to Zoom and, their hangups that they have, how to talk them through that's important. And I hope you can do that well. With a minute 20 left, I wanted to, I think it's going to be a new thing I'm going to talk about during open forums that, or public comment, that, I want to be able to think about the economy in the next few years in this time of COVID. And I'm learning to feel that, we can eventually grow past COVID in the next couple of years. It may not be next year, but starting the next year after that, we'll have a better rhythm about how to deal with what may be an ongoing situation that will slowly lessen its harmful effects. I guess that's maybe the idea we're working towards. And how do we think of our economy in those terms? There is a stock market that is doing incredibly well still. And, how can that translate to everyday city services that should be able to continue? I know you guys are trying really hard and to make sure of those things. And how can we convince ourselves, how do we make those efforts that money is plentiful and available and we don't have to bring ourselves down into the pits, to bring ourselves to good reasons and good solutions and good ideas. Thank you.
Okay, on to the San Jose manufacturing and real estate landscape report.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Camus and committee. I'm thrilled to be here today. Nathan Donato Weinstein with Office of Economic Development. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen and make it large. Just a moment. Here we go. Look good? Thumbs up? Awesome. All right. Well, I'm so happy to be here today. The primary subject of today's presentation is a report completed earlier this year on the state of San Jose's manufacturing lands. We originally planned to present to committee a lot earlier this year, but obviously things took a different path. But the report's core data and findings are still highly relevant today, and maybe more relevant than ever, since I really believe manufacturing will play such an important role in our local and national recovery from COVID-19. And today we are really thrilled to be joined by two experts for our presentation. Kate Sophis is CEO and co-founder of SF Made Inc., which led the study we will explore today. And SF Made, if you don't know, a lot of you know SF Made already, but SF Made is a nonprofit organization started in 2010 that supports the Bay Area's manufacturing ecosystem. They provide advising services for manufacturers, training and job seeker assistance for low-income workers, research for policymakers and cities, and events to keep the industry connected. And SF Made has also launched a sister organization called PlaceMade, which is a nonprofit industrial real estate developer, one of the few in the nation. Just a few years ago in 2018, SF Made launched Manufacture San Jose with a similar mission and an overarching goal of building more shared prosperity and equity in our region. They're focused solely on San Jose and our manufacturers here. I'm happy to be joined by Michael Erickson, the regional director. And Michael today will give us a little bit more of a feel for the on-the-ground conditions since the report was published around the manufacturing sector in the age of COVID-19. So, we talk a lot about manufacturing in OED, but just quickly, I wanted to run down, why we care so much about this sector. And some of this you've heard from us before, but it's always good to kind of refresh. So first, we know that the industry tends to provide jobs that pay better than kind of bare minimum wages for residents who may not have a four-year college degree, and in many cases can provide a real pathway into the middle class. Second, manufacturing helps to diversify our economy in a way that, quite frankly, can help cushion the impact of economic shocks. And as we've seen, communities that are really weighted towards hospitality or retail or sort of software technology or healthcare or manufacturing on their own can be really hurt hard when one of these sectors is struggling, as we've seen lately. So we want to have strong bases in many sectors. And to give you just kind of a taste of some of the data, when we look at our metro area, which currently is sort of the best kind of data we have on this subject, we saw that our metro area lost about 4.7% of its manufacturing jobs from June 2019 to June 2020, which is the most recent month we have data for. And that compares to about 9.1% of jobs lost in the region sort of overall across all civilian sectors. And of course, some sectors were hit much more dramatically, as we know. That doesn't mean manufacturing is hunky-dory, but it's just kind of a sense of the way things have fallen on that sector. Third, manufacturing supports our city physically, and quarter to quarter, it is consistently our third or fourth largest producer of sales tax, usually falling after retail trade and accommodations and food services. And then finally, having manufacturing infrastructure in place really helps not just San Jose, but Silicon Valley and our country overall maintain its secret sauce. So, even if a tech giant no longer has mass production locally, as many have offshored their production overseas, the presence of manufacturing infrastructure is critical for these companies to prototyping and testing out new ideas. And of course, a big reason is just simply the jobs. So lots of them. The logos on this slide represent manufacturers who are all among our top 50 employers in the city by number of employees. And these companies alone represent about 17,000 jobs, actually a little bit more. And most of these companies actually do make things in San Jose still. And you can see the diversity really stretches from things like defense in the case of Cobham in Edenvale, medical supplies like BD Biosciences in North San Jose, circuit boards like Supermicro, sheet metal HVAC, products like Therma and more. And then lately, who can forget over the last few months that the pandemic has really highlighted the importance of manufacturing nationally to our national resilience. And I think people were shocked back in March and April to see shortages of things like hand sanitizer and Sani wipes and surgical masks. And one of the cool things we learned in the EOC is that here in San Jose, we really do have companies that are making key pieces of our national response right here in San Jose. So for instance, BD Biosciences makes reagent chemicals that are needed for COVID-19 response and testing. Another contract manufacturer has been making parts for ventilators. And as many of you know, our own 10th Street distillery reconfigured their production to produce hand sanitizer, which is super cool. And as an organization, the city has supported manufacturing in several ways over the years. And one of the most important of the more recent kind of era is through policies that attempt to prioritize the preservation of industrial land. And this isn't always just about housing development. It's also sometimes about the way office type of development can also encroach on industrial land. And that's so important because if businesses don't have the right space at the right price and the right location, they can't operate and we'll lose them to other areas of our state, country, and world. Another key way that the city has supported the sector is through permitting. So can an industrial business get a tool installed with relatively little pain in sort of a relatively quick time frame? In San Jose, the answer is yes, through the Industrial Tool Installation, or ITI program, the lesser known sibling of the STI program. And it is really kind of important attraction and retention tool for us. For our manufacturers, they tell us that it's a key differentiator for us because it does help streamline the process of making upgrades to a facility. A number of special initiatives also are how the city supports the sector. Things like working with our education partners on career pathways, networking and events through the Manufacturing Roundtable, which was a sort of San Jose-led regional initiative that has now been kind of taken on by Manufacture San Jose, who's doing an awesome job. And then, of course, the partnership between the city and that organization as well. And then cool things like Manufacturing Week, which is like the kind of the dessert of our job, to go out once a year and hang out with hundreds of kids as they get to tour our local businesses and learn about the industry, jobs, and what skills you need to get a good job after high school or after college, what's kind of out there. And these are some photos from last year, courtesy of Michael. And so not that long ago, OED wanted to get a handle on just what's really going on in our manufacturing sector in a deeper way, paying particular attention to kind of the real estate environment. And this is really consistent with our general plan and economic strategy. And so we partnered with SF Made to really run the numbers and explore the current state of our industrial jobs and really how well suited the city's industrial base is to supporting these companies, and look for ways to continue to support them going forward. So with that, I actually am going to turn it over to Kate Sophis, who is going to present some of the key findings and tidbits from the study. And so Kate, go ahead and take yourself off mute, and then I am your clicker. So whatever you need to transition, let me know.
All right, so I guess I'll just say click when it's time. I'm assuming everyone can hear me, and good to see some of you. Let me preface this, and again, I think it's been that while the study and the data, on the one hand, was collected pre-pandemic, that in our experience in San Jose and in the other communities in the Bay Area in which we work, which now includes San Francisco and the East Bay, manufacturing has maybe never been more important and more resilient. And I think, the combination of the realization that I think all of us have had about how important it is to have strong regional supply chains, whether you're looking at personal protective equipment or you're looking at toilet paper. We've all sort of had a real visceral wake-up call to how essential that is. We also have had a really interesting experience as we are all working to allow businesses to operate in our communities. As you probably recall, manufacturing is one of the earlier industries that was allowed to move forward, even as we are still sheltering in many respects. And I think that we have found that manufacturing, based on the numbers that you just heard, has proven to be both resilient in terms of its ability to quickly, even after a shutdown, get back up and running and hire or retain or rehire people. But from a real estate perspective, compared to other kinds of commercial space, office in particular, manufacturing has demonstrated that it needs to be, and it needs to be back in its commercial industrial buildings. Really, you can't do much manufacturing at any scale from your home. And so I think what that really has meant is that the real estate itself, unlike certain other kinds of commercial space, is not sitting lifeless right now without people in it. It's quite the opposite. Manufacturing is back. And so what we're going to be looking at, really the places where making happens in San Jose, those are very much still real and very active right now. In some ways, they are the main commercial business operating in some of these neighborhoods, which I think is both interesting and provides a real important lens to thinking how to maintain community vibrancy, even if you're still in the midst of a pandemic. So with that, why don't we sort of tick through the numbers? And Nathan, are there questions allowed at the end of this procedurally? Yes. Okay. So we'll make sure whenever it's allowed and appropriate, happy to take questions. I think really we hit on this in Nathan's preamble. So why don't we just move on from there? So this is a snapshot of the variety of manufacturers that you have. And you know, I think it's sometimes easy for many of us to notice the really big manufacturers, and we saw some of their logos on a previous slide or two. But what to me is such a heartening story about San Jose is while, yes, you have a very strong presence in computer and electronic advanced manufacturing, if you want to call it that, you also have a strong presence in food manufacturing and kinds of furniture manufacturing. And we're going to come back to this diversity because when we talk about economic resiliency, it's really the combination of these larger, mostly, not all, but mostly advanced technology driven manufacturers combined with this really large number of smaller, what I might call sort of legacy manufacturers, some of which have passed from generation to generation and exist in your neighborhoods, which we'll see in a minute. It's really the combination of the two that I think adds the resiliency to San Jose. So I'm going to use the word next generation and not advanced manufacturing. And Nathan's probably laughing because it's a slight pet peeve of mine. You know, advanced manufacturing, when we first started using the term, I think really meant as we were starting to see innovations around things like using 3D printing and other kinds of computer-driven manufacturing in our technology sector. When that started, it was in fact advanced compared to older kinds of technologies. But what I would argue now is that really these kinds of computer manufacturing techniques, you're going to start seeing in all manufacturing, particularly in manufacturing, the kind that we see here in the Bay Area, which still remains one of the most or more expensive parts of the world to operate in. So we are using today really more, we're going to use the term next generation manufacturers to really represent these truly sort of hybrid or pure play technology driven manufacturers, electronics, computers, and telecommunications. And then we're going to talk about these traditional legacy manufacturers, which are often smaller, but they all are using different varieties of advanced manufacturing now, which I think is a really interesting thing to understand, that you can have a very simple, say, food processing operation, but use a computer-controlled packaging equipment. Or you might have in Oakland, a garment manufacturer who's now using computer-controlled cutting equipment to have more efficient cuts. So advanced manufacturing techniques throughout all kinds of manufacturing. Click. So let's talk first about the manufacturers you probably know best in San Jose, or that San Jose is often best known for, these larger, truly technology-driven next-generation manufacturers. So in addition to just having a lot of jobs, which I think Nathan hit on quite well, they also tend to have long, in a good way, pathways when an individual starts with less than a 4-year degree for them to gain skills and income and really build into a family sustaining decent wage career. We find people who have started with, you know, very limited experience in these industries, going from a test tech kind of person to an assistant engineer and beyond. So that's one reason that these are such important fields when we talk about equity. Next. And let me just stop. Can you guys hear me? It said my internet connection was unstable. We're still, okay.
You're fine.
Great, thanks. Probably just Zoom making an excuse in case it goes down again today. So this is an example of some of these other traditional or legacy manufacturers, sort of as a counterpoint to the sort of tech forward kinds of manufacturers. And again, a real diversity, breakfast cereal manufacturing to retail bakeries, making blinds, other kinds of small electronics that go into big electronics. Next page. And these legacy or traditional manufacturers, what you're about to see in a minute, are really important to San Jose, both because they are scattered throughout your neighborhoods. And so they offer in many ways a true possibility to live and work in the same neighborhood that some of the larger technology-driven manufacturers are a little bit further afield from some of the neighborhoods. And there is a much higher proportion of multi-generational family-owned businesses, and specifically businesses owned by people of color. Again, we see when we talk equity, it's both in terms of the large companies and the diversity of jobs they provide, and in terms of these smaller manufacturers who provide both jobs, but also ownership opportunities for people. So I'm going to start with your zoning, sort of start from the base and then we'll build up. So like most US cities, San Jose has zoning, and you know, historically in most US cities, back in the day when industrial zoning was first put in place, it was put in place because it was considered not a compatible use to be in and around your residential neighborhoods. And I can speak coming and growing up in Buffalo, New York, near a big engine stamping plant for General Motors and Bethlehem Steel. You know, those kinds of big manufacturers produced waste and pollution and all kinds of other features that you didn't want to be living near and raising your kids near. Fast forward to now, and 99.9% of the kinds of manufacturers that you see in San Jose, and frankly most other US cities, are clean. They are, many of them smaller scale and absolutely able to exist right next door in some cases to residential and certainly other commercial uses. So starting with that, you do have industrial zoning, and it's here indicated in yellow. You'll see a lot of it is clustered in North San Jose, but you do have some other areas as you head into some of the other neighborhoods. What we're going to see in a minute is many of the manufacturers are in fact clustered in these zones, but many are not. Click. So these are where your manufacturers are. We're going to take a look into a few of these areas. Now, you of course, a cluster in North San Jose that is very much consistent with your zoning. And these are many of your larger next generation style manufacturers that we talked about are clustered in that area. But many of these other dots are much smaller manufacturers and often very local community serving. A local bakery, for example, could be considered a manufacturer if they wholesale as well as retail into the community. Let's keep going. Your industrial space is also in high demand, and you know, my preamble, your vacancy rate was at 3% or less. My bet is it's probably not changed very much since then. You know, what we've found again in the cities in which we're working is that because you really can't run an industrial business from home, once those kinds of businesses were allowed to safely operate again, most able to start up and reoccupy their space. So in many ways, speaking with commercial brokers, industrial space is probably one of the more robust kinds of commercial spaces that is going to be in demand. Next, let's keep going. So here's a quick look into some of your clusters, and I'm going to give props out to Bay Area Economics, who us and produce these awesome heat maps. So this is really looking at employment density mapped across a number of different we'll call them neighborhoods or areas in San Jose. And you'll see this cluster map is really looking at these larger next generation manufacturers, and they are heavily clustered up in North San Jose, which is also where the majority of your larger scale industrial areas are. And it's also very well transit served. We're going to talk transit in a minute. Next. This map shows a clustering of these traditional or legacy manufacturers. And what I think is quite interesting about this is that while many of them are also located in North San Jose, you have some very decent sized clusters, particularly around the Monterey Corridor area, that exist of those businesses. Next. So I wanted to raise, as we did last, the notion as you about protecting the areas where these vital manufacturers are, both the larger next generation as well as these smaller family-owned legacy manufacturers. I think you would want to pay particular attention where you have clusters like the Monterey Corridor of smaller manufacturers, largely often owned by the same folks that live in those communities, and where there's this trifecta, if you will, of jobs and housing and transit. Next. This is a deeper dive into the Monterey area, but it gives you a pretty good idea of how, you know, it's really block by block that you have clusters of some manufacturers, some neighborhood commercial serving business, and housing. Next. And this is another view of Monterey Corridor showing transit access. So let's talk for a minute about transit access. So, you know, I think all of our communities in the Bay Area have been very focused on transit-oriented development and on reducing vehicle trips and all the other things I know we've been doing in San Jose and other cities to try to get people out of their cars. And so when we developed these maps, we were really excited about the fact that many of these areas, unlike many cities in your city, many of these industrial areas are well served by transit. And that has proven to be really important historically, both provide more access for communities of need into those jobs. And also it's proven in the past to be an amenity even to higher wage, highly skilled workers when manufacturers have chosen where to locate. I know with the pandemic that there has been a real assault on using public transit in most of our communities. People are afraid. And so we've certainly seen transit ridership drop. We do not think that is going to be a permanent state of affairs. We recognize right now at this moment in time that transit is down, but you know, we will come through this on the other side. And I would still recommend, as you think about protecting your spaces, that you pay special attention to these richly transit served areas, again, where you have manufacturing and residential areas right next to each other. Next. Another one of these, what we would call sort of transit oriented industrial neighborhoods up near the Berryessa BART station. Again, very similar, where you have a mixture of some industrial transit immediately adjacent to housing. Next. We'll keep going. And then one more deep dive. Again, this is the Milpitas BART area. So you get the point. It's really about looking at where you have jobs now, where you have decent stock. And by the way, compared to many other cities in the Bay Area, San Francisco, for example, your stock tends to be still younger. You know, the main place where you'll want to think about modernization over time is a lot of these smaller manufacturers need smaller spaces, and like many cities that had really large manufacturing buildings, the need to be able to demise or separate some of your larger buildings to be smaller and have more flexible space is there. But I would say, you know, again, comparatively to other older cities, Oakland, San Francisco, you have younger stock, which is a real asset to your city. Next. Okay, next. And I think this is my last summary slide. I think I have pretty much touched on everything except my favorite, which is the middle item. So, you know, at the end of the day, zoning is really meant to do, in my view, two things. One is to sort of direct your businesses to where they might want to be better and to have more access to the amenities they need. The other is to prevent other kinds of uses from gobbling up all of the cool industrial buildings. And we couldn't help but notice, you've definitely had some incursion into some of your industrial areas by self-storage businesses. And boy, those are tricky, because once they're in and once they grab a building, it's really hard to convert it back. And it probably doesn't take much to realize their job density as compared to an actual industrial user is pretty slim. In San Francisco, we actually passed an outright moratorium on self-storage in our industrial areas after we also had a number of conversions. So you certainly want to pay attention to that. I think there's one more slide, Nathan, is there? The other one, and I think this can be important to think about, is as we come out of this pandemic and you start to develop again, it is not unreasonable to look at more density near your transit hubs where there is already industrial space. We've actually, in San Francisco, started to do at least a couple, 3 now, of multi-story industrial buildings. Again, that can work near a transit hub. Next slide. And I think this is the last slide. The trickiest piece that I'll sort of end with is, before the pandemic and certainly now, the need also for housing and affordable housing has never been. And I definitely want to encourage you to really think about how you do affordable housing in concert with industrial, but be careful not to use the industrial space and it to housing. And I know it's really tough right now you want to look under absolutely every stone. But again, the way I like to say it is, the industrial space you have provides the jobs for the people we're building the affordable housing for. And similar to converting industrial to self-storage, once you convert industrial to housing, you can't really get it back. So I'm hoping I can reassure you that industrial can really live right next door to housing. And so I'm much more of a proponent of looking at adjacency when you look at development, as opposed to substituting housing for industrial or vice versa. So I think that is it for my section.
Thank you. And is there any members of the public? Looks like Mr. Beekman wants to comment on the report. So we'll go with Mr. Beekman.
Hi.
Can I just confirm, is there more to this presentation?
I'm sorry to jump in. Yes, apologies.
Oh, I apologize. I thought
Councilmember,
she said it was the last. I apologize.
You know what? So we're actually going to hand it over now to Michael. So what I wanted to do was, following Kate's kind of report on the study, I would like Michael now to kind of bring us up to speed just briefly. He has sort of like, as our dessert, he's going to share with us some of the things he's seen over the last 6 months or so working with the sector.
I do like dessert. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I worry about being referred to as dessert, because that means I feel it's overhyping what I'm about to talk about. But c'est la vie. So thank you all for inviting me here today. I just want to, before I get into a survey that SF made and Manufacture San Jose did among some of the companies that we're engaged with, I wanted to first talk about what Manufacture San Jose has done prior to the pandemic and how we've pivoted since. So during 2019, Manufacture San Jose engaged with around 70 companies with a focus on driving needed resources and technical assistance as well as connecting companies with open positions to the nearly 60 workforce partners around the city and county. These manufacturers collectively sustained nearly 6,000 jobs. So now in August of 2020, we are now engaged with about 100 manufacturers. And since the COVID pandemic began, Manufacture San Jose intensified our advising services to ensure that our manufacturers were armed with all relevant information and resources to allow them to adapt and sustain themselves in this environment, especially around access to SBA loan instruments like EIDL and PPP, and of course, updated county social distancing protocols to ensure that our manufacturers are operating primarily with health and safety of their production staff in mind. We have also assisted companies in diversifying their sales channels to include e-commerce platforms. With companies who've received PPP funding, we are now advising them on ways to ensure those loans are forgivable by the end of the year. And just to throw in one quick anecdote in here, it's, Nathan earlier had mentioned 10th Street Distillery. It was the ongoing and continued partnership between Manufacture San Jose, the manufacturers we're engaged with, and our friends at the OED, like Nathan, Chris, and Vic, and others who helped 10th Street Distillery find the connections necessary to make their pivot to producing sanitizer happen. So as always, thank you for that. In addition, Manufacture San Jose is continuing to work with our local workforce partners to increase the pipeline of talent seeking careers in manufacturing. We are also continuing to highlight career pathways in manufacturing through our workshops in partnership with San Jose Public Library Works. Additionally, we have continued our partnership with San Jose Works to connect our manufacturers with paid interns over the remainder of 2020 and the first half of 2021. These efforts will help ensure that our manufacturers become more resilient while continuing to retain and grow their workforce for the foreseeable future. Next slide. Promise I'm not going to say click. So of the about 80 manufacturers we were connected with at that time, we received 30 respondents to our survey to uncover what their current state is during the pandemic. So this is a snapshot of June to July of this year. Of those who responded, 8% said they were booming, 23% said they were improving, 50% said steady, 19% had actually said that they were declining. None of them considered themselves to be in a critical state of affairs. The biggest surprise to me here is that, about 80% of those who responded said they were actually in steady to growing condition despite what's happening on the ground. Next slide. So of those who were surveyed and responded, we had sort of created some challenge categories and using a scale from 1 being no challenge at all to 100 being the most pressing. Decreasing sales is the greatest challenge. The challenge score there was 36 versus 56 score in San Francisco. And as you can see in some of these numbers, there is a comparison between the state of manufacturing companies here versus in San Francisco. Second level challenges, health and safety rules, other HR related issues, staff morale, and access to capital all fell into the top 5. Next slide. As far as access to capital, among those who responded, only $6 million in reported combined capital assistance. The majority of that, unsurprisingly, came from PPP loans. The EIDL loan advance and the EIDL loans took up the biggest portion of the remainder. And then there were some companies who actually took out either a personal loan or utilized the line of credit available to keep their company going. One received a $10,000 grant to assist with, some payroll needs and other things as well. Next slide. So as far as workforce and revenue, everyone who responded, so you're going to see two things here. One is a slide that is a snapshot of everyone who responded. The next will actually do a snapshot of those who are under 2 million in revenue. So as you can see, there hasn't been much of a reduction in full-time headcount at these companies, and driven solely by really one company. They saw a 58% growth in part-time staff. Based on that company and then two other larger companies, overall revenue is up among the respondents by 25%. Next slide. So for companies under 2 million, the story is a little bit different. They also have seen a 4% reduction in full-time headcount, but the largest area of contraction is among part-time staff as a percentage of the total workforce. Part-time growth, as I mentioned, is really driven by consumer product companies, and where it took the biggest hit was, for example, with the local breweries, because they were forced to close their tap rooms and really focus on production solely. They saw the biggest loss in part-time headcount reduction in or during the last 6 months. The other thing I would say, and the bright spot to all of this on the workforce side, is every single company that we surveyed and responded said that they were planning to hire by the end of the year. So there is still a confidence among manufacturers that they will be able to continue a track toward growth by the end of this year. Next slide. So some trends and findings. Among the 30 respondents, only 7 had received rental assistance. In some cases because it wasn't necessary and they didn't ask for it. In some cases, the landlords or property managers that they have been working with weren't really willing to negotiate. Consumer product manufacturing continues to pivot to online curbside sales. And companies with established e-commerce sales channels are thriving. So that's the one big takeaway that I've noticed, especially among the consumer product manufacturers, is those that had established e-commerce channels and were marketing very well through either their website or social media are not only doing well, they're thriving. The real key for those that haven't been or have been a little bit behind is to pivot as quickly as possible and market themselves as well as possible to pick up the pace and be able to catch up with the rest. Next slide. That's it. Thank you so much.
That's it. All right. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, so that is the end of the presentation.
That's it. Thank you so much, Councilmember.
All right, now we'll go to public comment. Mr. Beekman has his hands up on the the report we just heard on industrial lands.
Hi, thank you. The first woman speaker, the second woman speaker, she nicely mentioned the idea of how tech can try to hire people in the low part of a company and ways that they can move up within the company. And that was nice to hear. If you're going to actually try to promote that sort of philosophy in San Jose and with what may be the future of Google in San Jose, that's fairly vital. You know, how, I mean, that's just a simple premise time-tested premise that I hope that Google will want to follow. And but I heard that's not happening as much as it used to, and I guess that makes an important responsibility in San Jose, how to continue that sort of tradition. So good luck in those efforts, and to really always be thinking about the East Side when considering the future of Google in San Jose. I wanted to quickly mention that even though these are industrial land ideas, there's still a own and tenant relationship with the buildings and the real estate, and that the measures of AB 1436, which is supposed to give rent forgiveness ideas in this time of COVID to both owners and tenants. It not just works for, say, apartment buildings, but it works for small businesses as well. And it's really interesting work that I recommend even this sort of group looks into, just to get ideas how different parts of the real estate economy is working. And I think it presents a really interesting idea how to address our future. And it's a way to be non-combative and for all parties to be satisfied, all sides. And that's quite an accomplishment. And I hope we keep those doors open to 1436 and all of our thinking. Thank you.
All right, on back to council discussion. Let me kick off the discussion by asking, is Manufacturing San Jose working with Work to Future? I know that sounds like there is some hiring being done in the manufacturing sector, and I wanted you to discuss some, we heard some really scary unemployment numbers, and I've been watching unemployment lately, so I just wanted to see if Manufacturing San Jose is working on training or retraining folks into the manufacturing sectors.
Yeah, the quick answer to that is yes. And we've, even prior to my arrival in June of 2018, Manufacturing San Jose was partnered with Work to Future very early on. Initially, it was more around the conversation of getting companies together to create a sort of unified guideline to both recruiting and creating or highlighting career pathways in manufacturing. We are now actually partnered around this current Bridge to Recovery program through Catholic Charities and some other organizations to really pool our resources and find ways to not only highlight careers in manufacturing, but in other sectors, and to help those who've been displaced because of COVID find career pathways and sort of pivot career pathways into manufacturing and other sectors.
All right, thank you. And I'm glad you're working with Work to Future. They do some great work for our community. And thanks for the dessert.
I hope it was good for everybody.
Well, it's it is a little bit different than I would say retail. From what I know that our retail numbers are going in a different direction altogether, which leads me to my next questions. There's going to be, I think, a lot of retail space open. Is there a way to repurpose, say, retail into at least light commercial? I don't know, maybe, I don't know if who's qualified to answer that question. Maybe it's a legal question.
Well, and Kate Sophis could maybe answer that in terms of how San Francisco has done and how some San Francisco manufacturers have been able to operate, because a lot of them do have these sort of combined spaces where they're manufacturing in the back and have a small retail section in the front. But Kate just texted me and told me your internet is down. So I can have her respond to you more or with more detail on that, certainly.
And I would
Yeah.
say, council member, we are seeing it kind of across the country, examples where you're seeing some of these former box stores get converted into like warehouse distribution sites. And so there's been some discussion in the media about Amazon's interest in looking at some of the JCPenney closures to facilitate sort of more last mile hubs closer to populations. We haven't seen anyone kind of propose that yet for any of our big boxes in San Jose. You know, we've been, to be honest with you, and this is not me being my normal Pollyanna self, we've really been privileged to see some backfilling of those box vacancies that we had kind of at least pre-COVID. And so a lot of our, for instance, our OSH spaces have now been backfilled by other retailers. But I think we will continue to see this march where retailers are going to be adding more fulfillment type of operations in their stores, and kind of that merging, right? I mean, I just went to Kohl's this weekend to return some stuff from Amazon. And you're seeing that distribution function kind of take on more and more of a role in the store now.
Yeah, well, like we did get or what is it, outdoor supply
Right.
instead of orchard, and you know, we got Ashley Furniture and Living Spaces, but all the gyms are going away for that matter, you know, and that, so I think we need to keep an eye out on that.
Yeah.
I will now go to Maya Esparza if you want to unmute yourself.
Thanks. I wanted to start off with just a question. Will we be building on this study if we get the federal grant and kind of do some further study? Is that going to build on this? I don't know if this is a question for Chris.
Yeah,
or Nate.
I can take a crack. I mean,
Okay.
so within the grant application, there was nothing that we had necessarily proposed in terms of directly kind of a part two. There was the kind of study work that we really want to do within the Economic Development Association grant proposal is around how could opportunity zones be used to support manufacturers and actually other businesses, startup businesses as well, but particularly manufacturers from sort of a access to capital standpoint and a equity investing standpoint. And so from that perspective, kind of the study work we're looking at is more around building models for investment in industrial industrial opportunity zones, of which we have quite a few.
Councilmember, I just add just quickly on what Nathan was saying. You know, really the focus in the EDA grant, as far as the partnership with Manufacture San Jose, was really about delivery of service. So it's intended to kind of focus their efforts and kind of provide more support to local manufacturers throughout those areas that we think there's an opportunity to continue to build. You know, things like, I think one of those critical aspects that we see is that opportunity to create a bridge between some of those employers and some of those residents in those areas that could potentially fill those jobs, especially where they're hardest hit by the impacts of COVID.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to use that study to, if we get that federal grant, to kind of really be smart about how we use opportunity zones. There's so much literature about all the pitfalls nationwide, and obviously we don't want that here. But in looking at the study's recommendations, just speaking from the work of the Monterey Corridor Working Group, where we looked at the Monterey Corridor, the land has actually changed hands very little, but yes, I agree that the industrial space is aging, and very much so in the Monterey Corridor. We've had a couple of heavy industrial employers do some really big investments recently, but when you're talking about a lot of the smaller manufacturing businesses, they haven't, invested in their facilities in a very long time, if ever. And so there's that, there's a lot of variance along that corridor. And so I agree. I think we need to find a way um, for that access to capital to really improve the manufacturing infrastructure for what we have right now. And I wanted to comment on a couple of things. So, one is on the storage space. I completely support that. I think self-storage takes up a lot of land. It doesn't provide a lot of jobs. And that land is precious, and there's a lot of things that we can do with that land. But in one of the other recommendations to pay attention to competing uses within industrial sectors, that was one of the things that really came out of we discussed in the Monterey Corridor Working Group is that that's in the Monterey Corridor, it's such a patchwork of zoning right now. And then how can we as a city sort of support zoning uses moving forward so that developers can put together a parcel to really bring in the kind of manufacturing or support the kind of manufacturing that we want to encourage as a city. And I think that's a more complicated question, and it has a lot of nuance within it. And so that's one of the things I'm hoping that we can also look at in the opportunity zones, because if it does bring in investment, again, looking at what's been done in other cities, I think that's something that we should look at. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza. And if there's no further questions from my colleagues, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
Move to accept.
Second.
All right, I want to thank staff for their very thorough and report. And all in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to take a roll? Do we have to take the vote one by one?
You actually do. I'm got an email up to send to all of you to update the virtual meeting guidelines where we have to do roll call vote for every item.
Okay, well then go ahead and start.
Camus?
Yes.
Foley?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Peralez?
Aye.
Esparza?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda that I have in front of me is open forum, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay. Are there any, it looks like we do have a speaker from the public on open forum. Blair Beekman?
Hi, thank you. End of the meeting. Congratulations on having a meeting. I guess just to go over COVID issues, my two big COVID issues I'm going to talk about, I think, all through September, are the ideas of housing and the economy itself. And, I'm really excited of the work that I think Ashkara is a part of with AB 1436. Many assembly persons of the Bay Area are part of these housing measures that, I just need to really say each week now that are really meant to help both tenants and owners, and they can give owners a lot of support. So owners do not have to sue their tenants anymore and go after their tenants and feel their tenants are guilty and need to pay up and all that stuff. And it's, that there's a lot of miscommunication in that process. And AB 1436 is really a way to clear everything up. And I hope the owners can really take a look at it, and it will keep them from attacking and wanting to feel they're owed things when it's really, really being worked out. And I hope that the city government of San Jose really makes the effort to explain what the choices that are possible and what always can be open for us during this time. With that said, and to also mention 1436, it has a 2-year, I think maybe 1 year, 2-year rent forgiveness at this time. Always leave that door open. It may need more than 1 or 2 years. It may need up to 5 or 10 years. Don't be afraid of that. be open to that idea. With my remaining 20 seconds, I want to be able to talk about the economy. As frightful as this time is, I hope that I think we're taking really good steps that we can safely protect ourselves. And thank you for those efforts. And so I just hope we don't have to rely on such a dour future and work on our creative, positive ideas. Thank you.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, staff, for your reports.